Well, hey everyone. I'm Karlyn Borysenko, and I'm here for something a little bit different today, something I didn't exactly plan into my schedule. And we're going to have to do this in multiple parts just because I'm about to react to a really long video. And that is Lauren Southern's new memoir, kind of. I think it's a memoir. It's about 3 hours long, and it's called The Whole Truth. And this video dropped yesterday, and I had people like, listen, I'm gonna be blunt. I've never been like a Lauren Southern person, and that's not a reflection of Lauren. It's just a reflection of the time when I kind of came into politics. She wasn't really prominent. I think I kind of came like into it after she had already left apparently, or had at least scaled way back. And so it wasn't a reflection of like anything that I thought about her. I really didn't have any opinion about her other than I knew she was a very controversial person. I knew that she was someone on the like far right, or at least that was my perception. I guess maybe we'll find out. Um, but I didn't really know that much about her, and I hadn't really looked into her honestly up until yesterday when this video dropped and people started sending me clips of it, and they said, "Karlyn, have you seen this? Have you seen this? You have to watch this." Because in this video, it seems that Lauren really takes right-wing influencers, some very specific right-wing influencers, to task about not being who they present as. And there is one clip in particular that a follower and, someone who's been a supporter of mine since the beginning showed me, in which she was talking directly to conservatives or people on the right. I guess maybe not conservatives. I don't know if conservatives is the most descriptive term here, but people on the right saying you can't call people traitors when you push them out of your movement. And I got to tell you, when I saw that clip, it hit me right in the feels because I, over the course of 2020 and especially in 2021, I was pushed out by conservative influencers, by people on the right. And you might argue whether or not they're specifically conservatives. I'm sure I'll get comments about that, whatever. I'm using conservatives as a general colloquial term to encompass many different groups. And that's just going to be the way it is because I cannot enumerate every single group. But I was pushed out um by the influencers. That was what happened. I gave up everything in 2020 to try to get as many Democrats out, after, for those of you who might be watching this that you don't know me, in early 2020, I had an article go viral on the internet about how I was a Democrat for 20 years who went to a Trump rally, and I was leaving the Democratic Party because I realized how much the media had lied to me. And when that article went viral, I got kind of thrust into this weird political spotlight that I never had any idea even existed, let alone like I never anticipated being a part of it. That was not part of my life plan at all in any way, shape, or form. And throughout 2020, I stepped up and became, I guess, an activist because I thought it was the right thing to do, because I wanted to wake up as many people in the Democratic Party as I could to say, this is wrong. What they're doing is wrong, and you need to leave. You need to vote for Trump. Trump might not be your favorite person, but between Trump and Biden, he is the better of the two options. And I really did everything I could. I was touring with the Walkaway campaign every single week, all over the country. And just, I did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. I did a PragerU video because I thought it was the right thing to do, not because I ever really bought into this conservative mentality or the mentality of the right, but because I thought at that point it presented a better option than the left. And I was looking at it from a standpoint of like, holy hell, we are so effed if people don't start stepping up and doing the right thing. And I made a mistake I really deeply regret, many mistakes I deeply regret of, well, I think that the primary mistake that I made is in trusting that people that I was surrounded with during that time period were also doing it for the right reasons. And of course, looking back on it now, I know they're not. Like, 2021 was hell for me. The year of 2021 was hell for me. And it was all because of conservative influencers. They made my life a living, breathing hell. And I grew to hate the right because of it. I like legitimately. I detest the right. I detest content creators. I think that the vast majority of them are just awful, horrible people. And when you're doing something and you're trying to do it for the right reasons, and the only people that you can use to try to get a message out are some of the most awful human beings on the planet, it really does get to you after a while. I got very severely depressed. Um, I think I'm only now just actually starting to come out of the depression. I've had many ups and downs on this road. And I'm still in it because I do believe that it is the right thing to do, but I cannot with the political right. I want nothing to do with the political right. I want nothing to do with content creators and influencers on the political right. I just don't think it's a good idea. Anyway, the reason that I'm telling you this is, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot more in the series and I'm going to do reacting to this video, is it seems that Lauren and people that she's known have had similar experiences. And when I saw that clip of her saying, "You can't drive people away from your movement and then call them traitors for leaving," that really hit very close to home. And so I watched a little bit of this last night. I kind of flipped around a little bit, but really what I decided to do is I wanted to do a reaction to it so you guys could get my just kind of unvarnished, unrehearsed thoughts. As you guys know, I don't script things ever. And so that's what we're gonna do. Now, this documentary or what memoir, what have you, is broken up into multiple different parts. You can see she's got all the timestamps here over the course of 3 hours. So we've got a lot to cover. I do not anticipate doing all of this in one sitting, if for no other reason that I have a meeting in 2 hours that I need to that I need to actually be done for. So I thought maybe we could try to get through maybe the first couple of sections and just see where we're going from there. But I guess, let me know what you think in the comments and let's get started.
I've never done a video like this before. I've written it 100+ times, recorded it with my teleprompter, edited it a dozen times, had friends watch it, contacted lawyers to see if I'd be able to say the things I'm saying, but I could just never hit publish. It never felt right. But I also can't go on doing the content I'm doing, talking about politics, talking about life as if it's all just normal without saying these things, without having an honest, candid conversation about the truth of my time in politics, the truth about why I left, the truth about everything around me that so many people and influencers don't want you knowing because it makes us look bad. But the only way we can do better is by having honest conversations.
I want to stop here and I wanted to, really commend Lauren because if this documentary or memoir or what have you goes the way that I think it's going to go, she's going to piss a lot of people off and she knows that and she knows it better than anyone. And she's going to piss a lot of famous people off and she's going to piss a lot of powerful people off. And someone told me that she said that when she released this video, this could end her career. And that is very literally true. The right is vicious when you go against them. They are worse than the woke left has ever been. Like I compared it to I did a video a couple weeks ago from Porkfest where I was talking about like I really want to break up with conservatives and they just won't let me go. And like people are like, "Well, why don't you just ignore them?" Like what people don't understand is that for me the woke left is like swatting away a fly. Like they're kind of annoying, but like I can kind of go like, go away." And they usually do. They go away because for the woke left when they come after me, it's not a personal thing. It's not even about me. But with the right, because of how my story developed and because so many of them found me through like PragerU or things like that, they have this weird sense of ownership over me where I cannot get away from them. And it's not like swatting a fly. It's not like something I can just ignore. It's like a dog chewing on my ankle. And like the dog's going to bite my foot off. The dog's going to bite my foot off. I can't ignore the dog. The dog won't go away. The dog won't leave me alone. Like, why can't the owner of their dog just come collect the goddamn dog and take it away? But the right is vicious when you go against them. They are vicious when you speak out and tell the truth. And so I really just want to commend her bravery for even doing this because listen, I am nothing on in the politics space. I am nothing. I am like a blip on the radar. Lauren Southern is very, very, very well known and very well connected. And I cannot imagine the pressure that she was feeling on releasing this video. And it's extraordinarily brave of her to do so.
But I don't think I can have that conversation in here. Can we take the lights outside? Cannot believe I'm finally doing this.
All right. I was skip ahead here a little bit because I don't need commentary. I'm sorry, Lord, I don't need commentary. Oh, we're talking about being a kid. Okay, good.
Where did it all begin? I was born into a family, and I had a wonderful, wonderful mother and father. We weren't particularly wealthy. I remember my first crib, I've seen a video of it, was a bathtub in my parents' one-bedroom apartment. And there's, this cute video of my dad walking into the room and saying, "Hi, Lauren," as I'm sitting there in blankets in the tub. Thank God a pipe didn't burst, or I wouldn't be here. But growing up in that household, I never knew anyone who was involved in any big time politics or TV or anything like that. That was like absurd. The idea that I would ever
I'm gonna knit while we're watching. I hope you guys will forgive me for that.
Like completely out of the picture for what my life should have looked like. You know, a very solid working class family. And but my dad liked listening to political podcasts every day when I went to school.
Dennis
Prager on and Michael Savage. And I kind of found it all very interesting. I really enjoyed it and got into it a bit myself as well on the internet, on Tumblr, all of that. And eventually when I got to university, I decided I wanted to try doing politics as well. And I was the first one in my family to go to university. So that was really, really exciting for me. I was working like 3 jobs, minimum wage. It was $8 an hour then. I still can't believe it. And I'll never forget, I was 19, driving back and forth to university, and my car tank was empty. And I found $2 under the mat in my car. And I was so excited because I was like, I don't have any money in my bank account. It's totally empty, but this $2 might be able to get me home today so I can wait for my paycheck tomorrow and get to university the next day. I was so stressed financially at that time. And oil and gas policy really pissed me off because we had just brought in all of these policies in Canada, you know, raising the carbon tax that increased prices of oil and gas. And it actually really affected me on a serious level of, am I going to be able to go to university or not? Am I going to be able to get to work? So conservative policies on oil and gas were something that I was really interested. Anything that, made it easier for the working class, the regular person day to day. So I joined this conference in university called Conserving Oil and Gas in Toronto. And my boyfriend at the time, who was this lovely Mennonite guy, decided to come with me. we flew to Toronto. It was one of maybe the second or third flight I'd been on in my life. And I was so excited to go to the big city. I got there and it was being hosted by a man named Ezra Levant.
Ezra Levant. He's a source of debate, a source of controversy, a source of entertaining television. Introducing Ezra Levant only on Sun News Network.
Ezra Levant, yep. Man, I remember watching him on TV when I was in high school. I would have been like 14, watching him on Sun News. And he's just this insanely confident, always worked up guy about free speech and Trudeau, the left-wingers and government. I loved watching it with my dad. It was very fun. And to see Ezra Levant in person, I was full-on fangirling. It was embarrassing. I had read all of his books. I brought Groundswell.
So I want to pause just for a second. So my experience is very different than Lauren's in that I never was really around politics. I never really wanted to be around politics. Like there was a brief moment in college where I was supposed to get I had a contact to go. Oh, this will tell you guys how old I am. I had a contact to get an internship in Senator Kennedy's office when I was in Boston. And I didn't do it, like Ted Kennedy, obviously. And I didn't do it because there was something that was just holding me back from even getting into politics. And my parents actually were pretty pissed because they had paid for me to spend the summer in Boston and do like summer classes at BU, which is where I went to school. And the whole premise, they were like, Karlyn, you're going to go work in Ted Kennedy's office. And I agreed to it. And I was like, nah, don't want to. And I ended up going to work at the Harvard Graduate School of Education instead, which was like, I liked higher education. I wanted to stay in higher education. And that was my first higher education job, was at Harvard. And that kind of started the higher ed career that I had for 10 years after I graduated from college, which is how I was able to do my degrees. And so I guess I wanted to say this story just in contrast, because what I want to do in this reaction is just compare and contrast some of Lauren's experiences with my much lesser experiences. And I'm acknowledging that they're much lesser. I'm not on her scale at all. But I think that I do think that it's interesting to look at different, like the ways that different people come into this space. I never wanted to be in this space, and I never really idolized people that were in this space. Although when I did get thrown into it, it was like I knew who these people were. I knew who Dave Rubin was. I knew who Dennis Prager was. I knew who Brandon Strauch was, but I wasn't like idolizing them. But it was definitely odd to get thrown into this space and suddenly be in direct contact with people that I had seen on the internet and had seen on the news and knew who they were. The oddest feeling in the world. But I was never like a fangirl like how Lauren's describing here.
Well with me, I think, to try and get it signed by him. And not only did he come and sign it, he sat beside me at this dinner at the conference and talked to me for like half an hour. And I went home just elated, so excited by the whole experience, but, you know, went back to my little life. And that was that crazy political experience I had. And I decided, okay, you know, university is getting difficult to pay for. I'm falling behind in my classes because I'm working so many jobs on the side. I have to kind of find a solution to this. So I decided I was going to join the Army. I filled out all the paperwork. I heard they had a program where they would pay for your university or for you to complete your university if you gave them a certain number of years. And that was going to be, you know, the best career option I could possibly have for my future. And then I got this email out of nowhere from Ezra. And it said, Lauren, I'm starting a new media company called Rebel Media, and we would love for you to contribute to it.
Sun News Network is off the air.
Bang, gone. That's basically what happened.
Sun News Network went off the air today.
Sun News Network has gone dark.
Wow.
The end of Sun News Network.
Sun TV faded to dark.
With Sun gone, there's a hole on the far right side of the dial.
Ezra Levant fighting for freedom in Calgary. Good night.
He's so Canadian.
every day the consensus media had one goal: stop Harper.
That's Ezra Levant, a journalist many consider to be the solo remaining voice of the conservative right in Canada, reporting live on election night here at his website, therebel.media's brand new Toronto studio, for the very first time.
As you can see, it's just a box with a bunch of green screens and green blankets.
I was shocked that he wanted me, of all people, the girl who came to get my book signed by him and was just starstruck, drooling, to make a video for Rebel Media, his new outlet to support working class, good conservative Canadians like me and my family. I was elated by the idea and said, absolutely. I didn't think much would come of it. I looked at their channel and it had a few hundred views here and there, and I figured I'm in political science, so it'll be a good opportunity to help my speaking skills, my presentation, to have this connection. But I really cared. I really wanted it to look good and to impress, you know, Ezra and all the people working at Rebel. So I wrote a script. I called it Why I'm Not a Feminist. And it was the first video I made for Rebel. I probably filmed it 13, 14 times, eventually paid a friend to come help me do it because I wanted to get it just right. And sent it over to Rebel. Didn't expect much of it. Figured it would get a few hundred views. Went to bed. Woke up the next day. And my life had changed overnight. It had not hundreds of views, not thousands of views, millions of views. Millions. My friends were calling me. My friends at university were coming up.
Yeah, I completely identify with what this was like for her, and she experienced it so much younger than I did. Like when I posted my Trump rally article on the internet, I thought it would get a couple hundred views. Like I posted it on Medium. I didn't even post it on a normal website. Like even like my own website, or like on my Facebook or anything. I posted it on Medium just because it was a blogging platform that I didn't really use. I had blogged a couple of like articles related to my business on it, but I just never got views on it. So I never thought that anyone would actually see it. And really, I wrote my Trump rally article mostly for my friends and family. I didn't write it for the masses because it never even occurred to me that the masses would see it. Like I wrote it for my friends and family basically to say, if you guys aren't paying attention to what's going on with this Trump situation and why people like Trump, we're going to lose. That was the intent behind it. And like in the first day after I posted the Trump rally article, it got a couple hundred views. It got maybe 300-400 views. And I was like, oh, that's, not so bad. And like, for something that's political, and I had never even written about politics before online. And so, so I was like, okay, well, that's not really bad. I didn't really even think about it until the next day. I woke up and my Twitter was going insane, and I was on this and I was like, what the hell is how I had been on Twitter since 2007. I've been on Twitter literally since it launched at South by Southwest in 2007. I had never seen anything like this before. It was just like notification after notification, like literally I just like left my Twitter going. It was like notifications coming, streaming in all day, every single second. More notifications were coming in for days and days and days and days. And I had gotten over 3 million views on that article in a week. And I remember like a very distinct moment for me where I was overwhelmed. I was panicking. I had never had that much of a spotlight on me in my life. I had like Glenn Beck's people wanting me to come on their show, and like Dennis Prager's people wanting me to come on their show, and like all this, like Dave Rubin slid into my DMs, and I was like, what the hell is happening? And I remember a very distinct moment where I was going to Orange Theory religiously. I used to love Orange Theory. I need to go back to Orange Theory. Orange Theory is awesome. It's like a workout thing for people who don't know, but I was going every single day to Orange Theory religiously for like a year or two up until that point. And I remember I was sitting on the rowing machine at Orange Theory, and it hit me about like the scale that this article was at. And I had a full-blown panic attack in the middle of a workout room around 24 other people. I started breathing. I was uncontrollable, like hyperventilating, like what the hell is going on with my life? And it even got to the point with me where like I couldn't even see straight. Was how much people know like I'm woo woo. I like the energy stuff, and I feel like I had so much energy coming at me, I couldn't see straight. Like, it was literally impacting my vision. And so, and this happened to me when I was 39 years old, 38 years old, 39 years old, something like that. I don't know. Years are meaningless anymore. And so, like, I actually have, I tell all this to have like a great deal of sympathy for Lauren. If this happened to her when she was in college, holy hell. Holy hell. I cannot imagine what that experience must have been like when happening it to with it happening to you when you're younger.
To me saying, I've seen the video, Lauren. Oh my gosh. I had thousands of messages in all of my inboxes on Facebook, Twitter, and in the span of 24 hours, I went from that fangirl wanting to get her book signed by Ezra Levant and going back to my little life working a minimum wage job to being at the center of everything I was watching, commentating on, and being fascinated by from afar. Just like,
Yeah, I totally, I wanted to stop again. Like, so it wasn't even just the views and it wasn't even just the tweets. I was getting messages on everywhere. My email box was filled up with messages from people saying like, you've changed my life. Like your story changed my life. Your story made me look at my family differently. My Instagram was filled up. My Twitter DMs were filled up. My LinkedIn messages were filled up. My Facebook messages were filled up. It was just like, you like even people that like I know that I hadn't talked to in years were coming out of the woodworks. It really is like an overwhelming thing when all of a sudden you're taken from being like just a normal person just kind of doing your thing and put in the center of like something that has that many like like you have that many people coming at you. It's I don't want to say that it's all bad. It's not all bad. It's exciting and it's invigorating and it's fun and it's interesting and it's definitely something different than you ever experienced any other point in your life, but it's also extraordinarily strange and it's extraordinarily discombobulating. And I think, one of the things that I've really looked back on and reflected about has been like, what would I do differently if I was in that situation now? I don't think that I necessarily like it's difficult to say because when you're in that situation, you are so thrown off balance by the oddity of the whole thing that it's really hard to look at it with like really with a fresh set of eyes to say, okay, who is on my side, who's not on my side, who's using me, who's real, who's authentic, who really cares, who only cares about money. Like it's really, really hard to discern those things when you yourself are in that moment and your whole life has just been turned on its head.
that. It's hard to like bring back the memories at this point. It was, I feel like, such a hectic time in my life. There were so many changes, so many eyes on me, so many opportunities that I never thought I would ever get in my life. And I was desperate to make it work. Because like I said, I wasn't set up to be a doctor or a lawyer or something with some massive fund ready for university. This was like, if I got this opportunity and I made it work, that would change my life forever.
What a gorgeous day in Vancouver. And joining us to talk about herself is Lauren Southern. Great to see you in person.
Great to see you, Ezra.
Lauren, you are the #1 star of the Rebel.media. Your commentary on feminism, well, it got almost 600,000 views on our site, and it was pirated by others.
Rebel offered me to have a show at that point. They said I could go out and do recordings at protests and come out to Toronto once a month to do a show, Standoff with Lauren Southern.
We're in serious trouble if we don't get an entirely new government. If you don't protect everyone's free speech, you're going to find your own silenced at some point.
Oh, they paid for the flights. Sorry. They paid for the flights, but they didn't pay for anything else. So I'd use a couch surfing app and I'd stay at random people's houses, sleeping on their floors to go and do this show in Toronto. It was insane. The fact that I'm not murdered or it is incredible. Incredible that I didn't get killed. Yeah, it really.
Yeah, I mean, people have this perception of when you get into this that there's just like so much money. And listen, there are organizations that do throw around the money. Turning Point absolutely throws around money, but there are also organizations that you like. You're basically like if you get a plane ticket, you are lucky to get that plane ticket. That is the reality. So for everyone who wants to call grifter every time someone like me pops up, trust me, I made significantly more money as an if I quit all this today and went back and just did organizational psychology full time, I would make significantly more money than what I'm making right now doing political and cultural content, like significantly more. And I would actually end up working a lot less hours. And don't think I haven't thought about it. I'm actually taking on organizational clients specifically because of all of the bullshit and nonsense that exists in the political space, and I'm just tired of it. And so I am actually starting to tiptoe back in that direction. And that's a different story for a different day. But I guess to just suffice to say, like, the money is not what people think it is. For some people, when you get to the very, 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 very top, it is. And usually the people who have the most money are the biggest grifters in the entire space. That's what they don't tell you. Like, the real activists make shit. The grifters, like, they like, if you are getting to a place where you're making a tremendous amount of money in this space, you're probably not a very good person, with some exceptions.
Really frustrates me now whenever I see people be like, "Oh, Lauren only got all these views and everything because she's a cute blonde girl or whatever." Like, no, I sacrificed a lot. I made a lot of efforts to make this work.
Why?
Because I cared. I deeply, deeply cared. I actually, I'm almost embarrassed sometimes looking back at it, but because so many people that I worked with in politics didn't actually believe in any of the politics that they spoke about. It was kind of an aesthetic. A lot of people who didn't make it in acting kind of got into politics and learned the talking points they had to say. And I was fully bought in from the start. I believed this was a civilizational battle for the heart of the West, for goodness, righteousness, conservatism, family, Christianity. That was all something that I truly, truly believed in at the core of my heart and soul, to the point where at that time I was getting kicked out of university classes for speaking up. I was, threatening my work. I almost lost my job, having to take so many days off to go and do these videos for Rebel. And I didn't make any money, not a dime off any of it. Just
God, that man. That really just hit me when she was talking about like how much she cared. Like, what, like, why would you do this? Why would you put yourself through something like this? Because I cared so much. I so identify with that. Like, you cannot express listen, like, when I woke up to how much the media had lied to me and how bad the woke left was, I was livid. I was so like, you know what, almost beyond livid, to the point where like there were no words for how angry I was about how long I had been lied to by everyone I trusted in my life. And when I'm really pissed at someone, I will go against them out of sheer unadulterated spite. And but it wasn't just spite. It was that I knew everything that the woke left was doing was wrong, and it just seemed to be rewarded. Like, this bad behavior seemed to be rewarded. And so I did care very, very deeply about like waking people up, getting people to leave the left, like helping people to see what's going on, making sure they understand the hypocrisy, like all of this. Like, I cared so deeply. I really like I cared so deeply, and that's why it hurt so much when I just started getting attacked by influencers on the right over and over and over again. People I'd never even spoken to. People who had never even bothered to have any sort of conversation with me, because I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm actually trying to do something and you idiots are just behaving like lunatics. Like, do you actually care? It was very disillusioning to me to realize how few blue check influencers that have like these millions of followers and who get all this money to promote their content. Like, it was very, very, very disillusioning to me to discover how few of them legitimately cared about what they were doing and how few of them even believed the talking points. There are lists of words that, like, if you go on like Fox News and say these lists of words like patriot, people's wallets open up and you can fundraise off that for eons. Your bank account will be full just by going on Fox News and saying the words that they want you to say. That is the truth. There are conservative influencers who have talked about this publicly, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to. Well, the one that I know of I don't want to throw this particular influencer under the bus because I actually like her, so I don't want to throw her under the bus. But like, you know, it is a known thing, and it's like it almost like there are two types of people that I think exist in this space. Well, no, there are three types of people. Number one type of person is people who actually do legitimately care and are doing this because they legitimately care. Person number two is a person who may like they want to be an entertainer. Like she said, I think that was a really insightful point. Like, these are failed actors, failed comedians who come into this space and can be successful in this space because they couldn't be successful in the other space, but they're entertainers, darling. They're entertainers. At the end of the day, their commitment is going to be to entertaining people above the actual cause that you're fighting for. And then there are the grifters, and the grifters are people who will literally say whatever they need to say, whether they believe it or not, to get views and get clicks and make money. And those tend to be the ones that rise to the top because that's what right-wing audiences want. That's what right-wing audiences want. And I get so angry at right-wing audiences because they're the ones who lift these people up. You know, for people who say to me, Karlyn, you should be angry at the grifters. Oh, I am angry at the grifters, but can you really blame them in some respects? They're told there is a mountain of cash for you if you just say the words that we want you to say and have the look we want you to have and interview the people we want you to interview, and we will reward your loyalty with a mountain of cash. More money than you could ever dream about making otherwise. Can you really blame them for taking advantage of that? I blame the people who are paying for that. I blame the people who are rewarding them with the mountain of cash, because if the mountain of cash reward wasn't there, there would be no incentive to do it in the first place. It is so frustrating. It is so frustrating to legitimately care and to watch the people who you know firsthand don't give a fuck, don't care, don't have any real interest other than money. And those are the ones that rise to the top over and over and over again because they give the audience what they want and what the audience demands. And the audience isn't demanding people who are actually doing things in the real world, who are actually trying to make real change. The audience is just demanding people who parrot their talking points and say the nice words and have the nice look and have the blonde hair and are thin. No offense to Lauren, she's beautiful. That's probably one of the reasons why she was successful. And I'm not saying she didn't work hard, but she absolutely has the look that they demand. And so I understand why it worked out. And that's not to say she didn't work hard at all. She obviously really did.
Just to clarify, so people don't think I'm lying about this, after my first video went viral, Rebel did offer to pay me a stipend of $100 per video. But the problem was they were paying for fully produced and edited products. So I had to hire an editor who I was paying a minimum of $120 to $200 per video for. It got to the point where I was struggle busing it so bad with $0 in the bank, I would have to make him wait until I got my paycheck from my university job, Cascades Casino or EV Games, before I could pay him. So all of those videos I did where I got millions of views that would have gotten thousands of dollars in ad revenue, I lost money making them. Eventually, after some months of working, Rebel did give me a full-time job there and would cover hotels, etc. So I saw this all as worth it, but I had to fight for it for sure.
I maybe had flights covered sometimes, but I paid for all of those videos I made at the very beginning with like the $0 that I had. No one was talking about this stuff at the time. There weren't, I mean, YouTube had been around for a while, but most videos on YouTube were Fred, Smosh, people making funny, silly little skits. And then the news was just the news. It was, okay, there's been a traffic jam here and this bill has been signed or whatever. There wasn't this massive sphere of political creators and streamers and all these little media companies that had become, online entities. They weren't talking about these controversial hot button issues like feminism going wild in universities at the time, men being told they were evil, being told that you're a horrific, awful person for being white. What really triggered a lot of this for me was taking the first social justice class that was introduced to my high school curriculum in Canada in grade 12. And they split us at the lockers based on if you were privileged or oppressed. And I was put on the privileged side just because I was white. And I remember looking at people across on the other side of the lockers that I knew had extremely wealthy, privileged backgrounds that had been put on the oppressed side and thinking, this is madness. This is insanity. What world are we living in? And why is no one talking about this? And so obviously, I'm like, yeah, I want to make these videos for Rebel. Yeah, we need to be talking about this.
See, and here is like the conundrum of this whole thing, right? Because Lauren at this stage has like correctly identified a problem. She understands that this social justice left feminist mentality is a problem, and she doesn't know what to do about it. And I felt like I was in the same position. It was like, I knew that the left was a problem, but I had never really been an activist. Like I had done some political stuff, but it was back in high school. And by the time my article went viral, like it had been a lot of years. I had never been an activist. I did not have a positive perception of activists. And I was just a professional out in the world, man. I was running my business. I was doing my thing. And so like when I started to identify like what the woke left was doing in terms of my knitting community and then kind of zooming out and seeing what they were doing from a cultural perspective, I knew there was a problem, but I didn't know what to do about it. And so I had identified that there was a problem, and then and then miraculously, as though the universe manifested it, I was given this weird platform because my Trump rally article went viral. And I thought, okay, what can I do with this platform I've been given to try to help contribute to solving the problem? But I never wanted to do what Lauren did, in that, like, I never wanted to go work for like a media company and have a show or any of that. And they wouldn't even take me anyway. I'm not thin, I'm not hot, I'm not blonde. I have crazy hair. I am not going to script things out perfectly. So I wasn't a good fit for that anyway. And, it was not something I ever really wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something. I'm really good at giving. I'm really good at public speaking. Okay, so you go on tour with the Walkaway campaign and you're touring all around trying to do these rallies to get people to leave the Democratic Party. But P.S., what they don't tell you is that the Walkaway campaign was really shitty at getting people to even go to those rallies. So even though I was giving up every weekend of my life for 6 months to go and tour around and do these things, I barely got in front of any people. And except there were occasional big rallies. There was a big rally in Beverly Hills. There was a big rally, like the Walkaway March in Washington was awesome. What an incredible day that was. I will never forget that day. It was so good. And so like occasionally you were kind of like working up to these moments where you had to go to rallies where you were literally, there were rallies that I was speaking in front of like maybe a couple dozen people, maybe. And that, by the way, was with them being promoted on Fox News, was with literally Donald Trump tweeting about these rallies, and we still couldn't get people to actually come to the rallies. And so this was always like a disconnect for me. It was always like this was literally on Fox News this morning. Trump literally tweeted about this morning and people still aren't showing up. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, so it is a big problem when like you identify a problem, You actually care about solving that problem. And it looks like Lauren had identified a problem. Lauren actually cared about solving this problem. And then she was given this platform that maybe she thought would contribute to solving the problem. And I feel like I had kind of like the similar thing where I identified a problem. I was given I cared about the problem. I was given a platform to try to talk about the problem. And then it all goes awry at some point.
And man, I was so passionate about it all. And I just didn't realize at the time that, I don't know, that passion I had as kind of the little guy coming into that big world wasn't as organic for a lot of the players that already existed in the world of politics. Joke's on me. I entered politics and didn't realize it was full of liars and frauds. Wow. Surprise, surprise. But
yo, I feel so seen right now. I feel incredibly seen. Yeah, same. I really thought that people cared. I really did. I made the mistake of giving people that I interacted with the benefit of the doubt, believing that they cared. And joke's on me, man. I guess, regardless of, I know that there are times when, people think I get too emotional and they think I get too angry. Well, fine. Like, guess what, guys? If you legitimately care about something, you're going to get emotional and angry. You know who doesn't get emotional and angry? People who don't actually care about the issues. There's a disincentive in this space to actually care about the issues that you're talking about. There is not a positive incentive for it. And that comes from the audience. That's not coming from the top down. That's coming from the bottom up. The disincentive to be passionate about issues comes from the audience. It doesn't come from the top. The top doesn't care about these issues because the audience has provided a disincentive for them to care about the issues. That's why the grifters rise up.
okay, so anyways, I could get into all of that for a while, but obviously one thing I wondered when I first started making these videos for Rebel was, am I just a one-trick pony? Is this just going to be why I'm not a feminist, millions and millions of views, and then no one cares about anything else? But that didn't end up being the case. In fact, I started going to protests like an absolute crazy person and counter-protesting these feminists and asking them questions about their ideology and philosophy. And those videos went absolutely viral as well. Lauren Southern crashes Vancouver Slutwalk. Lauren Southern crashes
Good for her.
Alberta Slutwalk, whatever they were. People loved these on the street questioning protesters.
She's
videos.
a badass bitch, man.
You are attacking our cameraman. The whole point of the walk is to protest rape culture.
I think that video went so viral at the time because not a lot of politics was being done that way. Today, you have 1,000 different people on the streets going to protests with live streams. It's like extremely common to the point where it's like saturated to go to protests. But at that time, no one had really seen it before. Commentators, political pundits, your place was behind a desk. You told people your opinions after the event happened. You didn't go to the event and then opine or cause commotion at said event, especially on YouTube. It just didn't really exist that much at the time. I don't want to say I'm the first because that's conceited, and I'm probably not, but one of the first people on YouTube doing that for sure, which was, yeah, just a wild experience. Of course, when I figured that was the kind of commentary people liked, and that was the critique of feminism that was working, that was getting people talking about, wow, these feminists don't really have their ideas all together. There's some serious contradictions going here, some serious flaws, right? I decided to keep hammering that hard. And one opportunity I got was to go down to Los Angeles to the Amber Rose Slut Walk. And not only the Amber Rose Slut Walk, but to meet another hero of mine, Milo Yiannopoulos.
Caviar, cigarettes, well versed in etiquette, extraordinarily nice. She's a killer.
All right, as we're getting into chapter 2, and let me just do a quick time check. I think we're going to try to get through chapter 2. We may try to get into chapter 3 if I have time, depending on how much the reaction goes. But I just wanted to stop and say, so I have never spoken directly to Milo Yiannopoulos. I have been at an event with him, though. I was at an event with him in late 2020. So he came in the event and was obviously like really out of his mind on something. He was obviously on something. I don't know what that thing was, but he was definitely on something. And it was honestly like really uncomfortable to watch him at the event. And that was disappointing, but not unexpected, if I'm honest about it. I did not like it was not a surprise to me to see him high off his gourd on something. But he got through the event and then he left and it was fine. And like, there was no major commotion or anything like that. That's really all it was disappointing to me because like, I do perceive Milo Yiannopoulos to be really smart, but it was also, there was like a smarminess and a just like, it was like dirty and not in a good way, if I'm honest about it. And that's kind of how I felt meeting a lot of influencers on the right. Is it's like smarmy and dirty, but not in like a good way, in like a skeezy way, in like a used car salesman type way. And it's always been disappointing when that happens because you might see them online and you might like some of the things that they say and you might exchange tweets here and there, and then you meet them in person and they're just like, they kind of make your skin crawl, if I'm honest.
Milo Yiannopoulos, also known as Nero online, is one of the most famous or infamous trolls on the internet.
I'm a gay Jew from Britain with a black boyfriend who really likes the Bible and guns and really doesn't like taxes.
He's an editor at Breitbart, the ultra-conservative news website.
I don't say anything I don't believe, but of course I do say things in a way that is going to elicit a response from people.
Oh, love wins, let's end hate. You know, like, what does that even mean?
I could not say no to an opportunity to meet Milo Yiannopoulos, to work on a project with him, and to go to another one of these slut walks where we could criticize this massive feminist enterprise that was ruining the lives of so many good people I knew. And this is a good segue for getting into the story of the Amber Rose slut walk. But one of the big reasons I didn't like feminism was because I had so many good men in my life. My father is an incredible man. Love him to death. Such a good dad. The men around me at my church, the men who were my friends in high school and elementary school, even the men that I dated at the time, like wonderful, wonderful people, truly. And to see them being portrayed as evil rapists and misogynists and bad for women really angered me.
Most men are rapists. And by that, I mean most cis heteronormative men.
The only answer to that is to kill male babies and just kill any man that you see like in the street.
See, and this is what's infuriating about this to me, this entire situation, because the left is legitimately nuts. The left is legitimately crazy. Lauren is correct. The left is legitimately crazy. And yet, the right is more interested in eating their own and destroying their own than they are in fighting this. I have been saying this over and over and over again for at least the last year, and every time I say something like this, I get told, Karlyn, I just don't see what you're talking about on the right, and you know, why don't you just focus all your energy on attacking the left? Because you guys don't focus your energy on attacking the left. Well, I was focusing my energy writing a whole fucking book about how to fight back against the woke left. I was being attacked relentlessly by Ian Miles Chung online. Still am attacked by the asshole today. So it's like, I look at stuff like this and I'm like, yeah, the left is insane, but what is more offensive to me? Mentally ill people, like what we're seeing on the left who are in obvious need of care and treatment and medication, or people on the right who have a full and complete understanding of how bad the problem is on the left, and they continue to do nothing productive and attack the people who are trying to do something productive and attack the people who really do care. Which of those is more infuriating to me? I can't be infuriated at untreated mentally ill people, which is what I think that the left are. They are untreated, they are mentally ill. It is a very big effing problem. But why should I care about fighting it when people on the left, or excuse me, people on the right care more about fighting each other than they do about fighting this?
It's like any swing chick, just kill him.
It really, really, truly upset me at the time. And I didn't really understand this visceral hatred and distrust towards the world and men that feminists had at all. It wasn't my lived experience, which brings me into how I got to the Amber Rose Slut Walk. So, of course, flying to LA, couldn't afford that. Staying at a hotel, could not afford that. I've explained this already. And I was lucky enough that an individual who was involved in the anti-feminist sphere had sent me an email. I think it was even under a fake name like John Doe or something. And this is how trusting I was. He just offered, Lauren, if you're willing to come down here, I'll pay for your flight. I'll pay for a place for you to stay. You'll be all good and sorted, right? And all I want basically is for you to make this content criticizing these crazy feminists. This cultural issue is so important for me that I'm willing to fund your trip. Amazing opportunity. I think I even messaged him back and I was like, thank you so much. Yeah, we can hang out, play some video games, have a glass of wine, and go to the protest the next day. Of course, my 19-year-old brain had no conception whatsoever, no idea of red flags that I'm going to go meet a strange guy in a different city and go stay at a hotel that he sets me up at. Like, just the red flags would be obvious. Now I look back and I'm like, you dumb bitch. But then it seemed all perfectly fine to me. I land in LA, meet this guy. He takes me to my Airbnb. And it's barely an Airbnb. It's like actually just like some Harry Potter-ass closet that someone has made in their apartment with like a draw curtain in the side of the wall, a cubby, if you will. And I go to bed because I arrived super late in Los Angeles. It's like 10 p.m. there or something. And this guy that's invited me out to film the protest says, I'm sleeping in the bed with you.
Wow.
I just did not even compute. I didn't understand. I was like, oh, no, I'd like to sleep in the bed myself. And he said, no, I paid for this bed. I will be sleeping in the bed with you.
Wow. And yet doesn't surprise me.
I'm sorry. I don't know. I was so panicked, so shocked by this situation. I didn't really know how to respond. I think I made something up about how, oh, maybe tomorrow or something. I just really need to get sleep tonight. I'm not feeling well. Please leave, please leave. And I finally got him to leave the Airbnb, but I was absolutely terrified. Terrified that someone would, obviously now, you know, looking back, I can see why someone would think that. But me, 19-year-old me, like when I was younger, I was like, why would someone fly me out here to do something political with the expectation that I was going to sleep with them? That's like crazy to me. They didn't say anything about that. I didn't say anything about that. Why would they put me in that situation?
Okay, I want to say this. I'm so glad I'm not a hot girl. That might seem like a weird thing to say in this context, but I really do think that if I had been like the young, hot, skinny, blonde girl that Lauren was when she was 19, and again, that's no shade on her. She is obviously very smart. She's obviously worked very hard. I'm not making a commentary on who she is as a person, but if I had been that, I don't even want to know what would have happened to me on the right. Because that's like that's like what they crave, to be honest. It is all about that image and like all it really I think I guess I won't say much more than that, at least right this second, than to say thank God that I was not in the same position that she was in, and I feel really badly for her that she got put into that position, because it's not right. It's not right. This was a young girl that cared about a cause and was trying to do the right thing, and just getting taken advantage of by nefarious actors in this space.
If I could go back in time and slap myself and tell myself to be a less trusting individual, I would. I would, because I put myself in a lot of really unfortunate situations politically because of this naive trust I had.
Yeah.
Sadly enough, probably some of these feminists that still, I think, have insane ideas in a lot of ways, but some of them probably would have given me the same warning. Just they took that lived experience to such an extreme that they made it.
The TERFs absolutely would have given her the same warning. The TERFs 100% would have given her the same warning. But I get it, man. I get it. Again, it's like one of those things where like you have to understand, like it's discombobulating to all of a sudden be thrown into this space. And even like I remember like even, 2 years later, it's still discombobulating for me to be in this space rather than just having a quiet, normal, private life. And so like it's not like it's just what I'm trying to articulate is it's not just discombobulating for the moment that it happens, it's discombobulating for a while after that. And so I do think that like, I get why she was trusting, and and separately from just being 19 years old and not having the life experience to know better, I understand why she was trusting, because she hadn't been given a reason not to be yet. And I'm going to be interested to hear in retrospect. I hope she talks about in retrospect, like looking back, like, oh my God, here are the things that I might have done differently if I was thrown into the situation today.
Possible to communicate to anyone else who hadn't lived it. And it makes me angry looking back at some of the radical feminists that I confronted. When I think, if you guys had just been more reasonable with how you presented things, if you hadn't made it all men, if you hadn't sat around and demonized an entire sex and told me they were all rapists and been hysterical with how you presented your ideas, then maybe me and other women would have actually listened to the real criticisms of the world and gender dynamics that you had, some of the important lessons you had.
That's a really fair point as well. And this is why I think nature of both sides right now is really problematic. No one is listening to each other. No one is listening. Everyone is just waiting to talk. Everyone is just waiting to spout their talking points, and that is true on the right and is true on the left. But Lauren's making a really, really apt criticism of the left here to say, like, had you just presented your ideas differently, I may have been more open to them. And the same is true of the right. The right is horrible about how they present their ideas. They are awful. They have no idea how to do it in a way that's not just speaking to their base and parroting the talking point. This is the fucking problem. This is the problem when you elevate grifters to be your top influencers, is that they do not care about persuading the other side. They do not care about persuading the other side. They only care about generating outrage among their loyal base to get them to follow them and share their content and like their content and click on their content and give them money. This is the problem when you elevate the wrong people who are going to lie to you or just say exactly what you want them to say. And they know exactly what you want them to say. And they know that if they just say the things you want them to say, they will stay at the top of the heap and they will continue to rake in those piles of money. But you convince no one. You convince no one from the other side.
It makes me really mad because there are things that feminists say that are true. There are power dynamics that exist. There are situations that women can get themselves in where they'll be in danger. And all of those warnings fall on deaf ears when you put them in the context of ridiculous, exaggerated talking points of all men are evil, right? So it makes me very sad looking back and wishing that I could have had reasonable conversations with these women. It was probably half my fault, half theirs, right? But so I was pretty shaken up the next morning.
We are responsible for 50% of all our relationships.
Guy who invited me, confronting me and asking to sleep in my bed. But I'd gotten an invite from Milo to go meet him and his assistant at a restaurant in LA. And there was no way I wasn't going to show up to that. So I put on the nicest dress I owned. I showed up to this restaurant, and it was the most opulent thing I had ever seen in my life at that point. I mean, the conservatives I hung out with at home, I met them at church and I met them at farms. I went to university at a place called University of the Fraser Valley, which was out in Chilliwack and Abbotsford. If you're Canadian or from BC, you'll know what I'm talking about. My conservative mates were, you know, manure hauling, cow farming,
beautiful,
chicken
though.
farming friends of mine that were riding around on tractors, not going to opulent restaurants in Los Angeles. So this was a whole new world to enter. I didn't even know there were conservatives that did this, that were cool, so to speak, right? And I guess Milo was kind of one of the first to start that culture of let's have conservatives that are into fashion, that are cool, that are gay, that are this, right? So that was a very surprising and somewhat galling, but obviously amazing experience for me. We talked for hours. We talked about Breitbart. Milo gave me so much advice on what to do in media and politics, advice that I look back on now, and I don't know how good it was, but I was very overwhelmed by the whole experience. But I remember being quite thankful that Milo was sympathetic to my situation with the Airbnb guy and said, "Listen, come stay with us. Don't worry about it. Like that's really crazy and creepy. We'll keep an eye out for you, so that you know you don't have to worry about this creepy guy trying to take advantage of you." So the next day, this guy, I tell the guy I don't want to stay in his Airbnb anymore. I don't worry about it, bud. Like just stay away from me. This is really creepy. He has an absolute freak out, like yelling at me. He starts going into his Skype messages. He starts going on his little like Twitter DMs with all of these different anti-feminist groups and basically saying I'm a fraud. I'm this horrible, horrible fraud that was actually just terrible in person, right? And this was the first time I had experienced something like this from...
Oh, I have no experience with this at all, with people who I say no to, then lying on the internet about me ad nauseum, going into people's DMs, spreading horrible lies, taking things completely out of context. This has been, what Lauren is describing right now, this has been the last 8 months of my life. Actually, longer than that. Honestly, longer than that. I mean, it's kicked up in the last 8 months. It's gotten a lot worse in the last 8 months. But this has been like the last year and a half of my life. And it started off with like small things and then just kept escalating and escalating and escalating. And it's like, you know, the minute that you tell some of these people no, they lose their minds. They lose their minds. I have had some of the most horrible rumors spread about me because I blocked someone on Twitter, or because I said, "No, I'm not going to leave my husband for you," or because I had more subscribers than they did on YouTube, or like or because they didn't like my tone, or because like any number of reasons. It's like things that like in the real world, when people have real jobs and are in the real world, they're just not they're not they're not breakdown worthy things to be told no by someone, or to have someone say like, "No, I'm not going to do that for you," or, you know, "We're not really a good fit to work on this together," or any of these things. Like, it's a normal human thing that people in this space, they take and they blow out of proportion, and then they start trying to destroy your reputation as retribution for the slight against them of telling them no. And yeah, I guess that's all I'll say for right now.
Someone that was supposed to be like my friend, my side of the aisle. I'm standing up for you, man. I'm criticizing feminism for people like you. And now you are acting the way that these feminists would portray a man. Why is this happening?
Yes.
And that was a really upsetting experience for me. But that passed. I kind of shook it off as a one-off. That's a one-off thing.
It's
This guy
not
was
a
a little
one-off.
crazy, but you know,
It's not a one-off.
99.9% of men are good people who would never
It's
do
not
something
has to do
like
with
that.
men. It has to do with the right.
Anyways, it's the next day. Milo, Alum, and I and a film team go to the Amber Rose Slut Walk. It is a gorgeous, sunny day out, so you got girls everywhere wearing nothing, boobs out, tape on. And Milo and I are ready for chaos. We've made these very offensive signs, horrendously offensive, that are like Harry Potter and rape culture. What do they have in common? Neither are real, you know? Just absolutely inflammatory stuff. And we show up at this event. And of course, after we've done a few interviews, bring out our signs, and these girls go wild. They are losing their minds. They're twerking on us. They're trying to steal our signs. They're trying to attack us. The police get called. We're getting dragged out by the police. And I remember just being so full of adrenaline. I think I even said to Milo, like, let's stay, let's get arrested, let's do it. And I think the only reason we didn't stay and get put in handcuffs was because Milo and I were both foreign citizens, and we would have been banned from traveling if we got arrested and got criminal records in the US. So we walked out, but we still got some amazing footage.
All right, so why are you guys out here today at the Slut Walk?
Beautiful ladies.
Of course, beautiful ladies.
Amber Rose. Amber.
Amber, so all of you just came out here to see all the chicks scantily clad?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a great cause. I'm all for it. I'm all for the sluts.
We went back to this apartment we were all staying and just quickly emailing off the footage, getting it all edited, prepared for release, just so excited by this. Look at these crazy feminists. They're attacking us. They can't even have a conversation. They're ripping up our signs. They're calling the police. That was the content that really shocked people at the time, right? Because that going on the ground and actually confronting another person about their ideas in this environment, it was very new. And we're just
So I want to say too, like she said that she wanted to stay to the point where like maybe they would have gotten arrested. Like I completely get that. When you are in those, listen, man, I've been chased by Black Lives Matter. I've had those types of interactions at rallies, and that was part of what I really loved. Like I remember when we did the rally in front of Wrigley Field in Chicago, and a whole line of Black Lives that rally was actually pretty great because a whole line of Black Lives Matter people showed up and they're beating their drums, and most of them are white. And then there's a whole line of cops, and then there's attendees at the rally and our speakers, and there were actually more Black speakers that were speaking at the rally than there were among Black Lives Matter attendees. But it's exciting and it's exhilarating, and it's like pissing people off on the left is fun. They freak out. It's like a scene. And so getting addicted to that kind of adrenaline, I think is, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to say it's bad, because I think that being put in those types of situations where you're around so many people that hate you, and they're seething, they hate you so much. And as long as, you're not in physical danger, and God knows I have actually been in situations where I was in physical danger, and I probably wouldn't want to do that again. But but I think that, there is something to that, in that it does make you a stronger and a more resilient person. And it's kind of, you get off on it a little bit. You're kind of like, what can I do now? What can I do now? How can I poke these people in a different way now? And it is fun to play with that energy. And so I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I totally understand why she was feeling exhilarated from being in these situations where like everyone there hates her, and she's just standing there like a boss bitch holding her sign and pissing them off, saying, I don't care what you think. I don't care. I totally get it.
Sitting there hanging out after, so excited about it all. I remember, we went to a bar or something after, and it was just Milo, Alum, and I. And I got along super well with Milo and Alum, particularly Alum. He was such a sweet guy. I remember I cannot stress enough what a dork I was before I got into this political world. I went to anime conventions, video games, read tons of fantasy. I was into all that stuff. And Alum was a bit dorky too and liked politics. So we got along really well. He'd laugh at my jokes, talk about, all of these different animes that he had seen as well. And, we stayed in contact for like weeks, months after that, and got along really well. We had a fantastic friendship.
Cut for a second. Went on a long, unnecessary rant here. Just going to give you the TLDR. Alum and I went on a few dates in December of 2015. I ended things. Obviously, like any normal person, Alum was upset. And when venting to a mutual friend of ours, made a joke that he could leak a ton of my offensive messages to the press or public if he wanted to. I'm talking like old classic 2015 4chan memes. And when my friend told me this, he made it sound like the most serious, dire thing in the world. And I truly thought my reputation was about to be destroyed. My life destroyed, the political career I had barely even started yet. Joke's on me. I ended up making all of those offensive memes my political career anyways. But none of that ever happened. Alum never leaked anything on me. He actually ended up apologizing for the fact that we fell out, and I to him as well. And we're really, really good friends to this day. And to me, this really speaks to the all or nothing view of relationships that my generation has been sold by overzealous feminists on the one hand and right wingers on the other. We're told we have to see entire sexes as either completely villainous or completely pure, and to interpret bad moments in our relationships as moral outrages, the end of the world, injustices that must be answered. At the same time, there's the ever present fear of being quote unquote canceled online for whatever reason, of having the worst sides of ourselves or even just embarrassing sides being dragged into the public eye. It creates this fear in relationships that wasn't really there in the pre-digital era, before it became just a trivial thing to broadcast to a global audience. In reality, relationships are messy. Bad breakups happen. People who really liked each other end up not liking each other for a while, and then time goes by and you're friends. That's exactly what happened with Alum. We're really good friends now. He's honestly one of the few people in politics that I would point to as an example of, man, that person stuck to their morals. They're a stand-up guy. If you watch the televised breakups of celebrities, you may be convinced that bad breakups and angry words mean you have to be enemies for life. It really doesn't have to be that way. But at the time, I'm sure both Alum and I felt that way. And so I turned to Milo out of genuine fear.
All right, I want to pause there. I have had someone leak private messages that I sent when we were joking, when we were friends, when we were talking all the time. I have had this experience. I have had the experience of having things that I said get taken completely out of context, twisted to mean something they didn't mean at the time, twisted to make me look like a horrible, rotten person. And I have had these leaked all over the internet, and I have had them be used by content creators who are jealous that I have a larger platform than them to try to discredit me and to turn my audience against me. I have had this happen. And so I'm not making the argument that all men are bad. I don't think all men are bad. But I guess I'm more so using it like I really think that the person that leaked these messages was being manipulated. I really do. That's not to say he's not at fault. He is at fault. He blatantly lied, said things that never happened. I don't want to go into the details of it because it's simply just not worth it. But, like, I think the part that was most offensive to me about the entire thing was not him, although I do have a very... I don't think we're ever going to be friends again. I don't think that that's going to happen. But that's because of him, not me. It's not because I haven't opened the door to him on multiple occasions. It's because he refuses. Because he was told no and he didn't like that. But I think that the greater problem for me is that is other content creators taking advantage of him and other content creators taking advantage of the situation. And that is one of the things that has really illustrated to me extremely clearly that the vast majority of content creators are just horrible, unprincipled people. Like, these are people who preach about morals that are going through private messages that have nothing to do with them. that were in a situation that they were not even remotely personally involved in, had nothing to do with them at all, and sharing them gleefully all over the internet to paint me in the worst possible light that they could paint me when they have no idea what actually happened. They have no idea what actually happened. And then they go around the internet talking about how they are the moral ones. They have the moral superiority over everyone. And it's like, you know what, dude? I know who you really are, and I know what you've done, and I know how you've impacted my life, and you are anything but moral.
And Milo was really, really comforting, spoke to Alum, got him to come back to London. He's like, don't worry, Lauren, I've calmed him down. It's all okay. Close that chapter, or so I thought.
I just want to do a quick time check here. So this looks like it's about 17 minutes long. I've got about 45 minutes until I have to be in this meeting at 2 p.m. So let's keep going. Let's hear about Milo.
Okay, so from this point, months go by and Milo's career is just skyrocketing. He's uncontactable, haven't heard from him in ages. He's on every TV screen. He's going on Bill Maher, speaking at every campus in America, protests every day, just insane. I'm at home just picking up groceries, and out of nowhere, I get a call from him. I remember being in a parking lot in Walnut Grove and just seeing Milo calling my phone. I pick up, and the man is just frantic. He's talking about Alan Bokhari, of all people, again, saying, Lauren, this is terrible. Alam has joined the left. He is working for Antifa. He is trying to leak all of my documents. He is trying to ruin my life. He's trying to take down the right wing. Don't you remember how horrible he was to you last year? This man is insane, and he is going to ruin my life. I've got contacts with Azalea Banks. I've got all of these celebrities. He's got their phone numbers. He's got their messages. He's going to leak them all to the far left media. He is trying to take down the conservative movement, and I need your help. I know he said horrible things to you or your cameraman. Any blackmail you have will help me right now. It will help me stop this far left attack on me that will destroy my life. And
all right, I don't know thus far, and I'm sure Lauren will illuminate this, if this was real or if this was paranoia, but I will say this, there is a crazy amount of paranoia on the right. And Milo may not be paranoid. I don't know. She's going to talk about it more, but like there is an absolute crazy amount of paranoia on the right. It really is. It's like, you know, there are conspiracy theorists for sure, but even separately from the conspiracy theorists, like people who you might think are like normal, rational people, there are moments where they get super, super paranoid about things that either is not happening, that they're making up, that I've seen this directly with, you know, people that are telling stories about me and like talking about all the things that I'm doing to them that I'm looking at, I'm going, I'm literally not doing anything to you. Like, I'm not talking about you. I'm not thinking about you. And that all of a sudden, like, you're telling people that I'm doing these things that I'm not doing at all. And I know I'm not doing them, but people get so and I'm not just saying it's about me. Like I'm just using like I think it's when it actually happens to you and it's something and someone like a fucking again big time like blue check influencer saying Karlyn's doing X, Y, B, and Z, and you're like, no, I'm not. Like I have no fucking clue what you're talking about. I have literally never spoken to you. There is a crazy amount of paranoia that exists on the right, and I don't know if it's exclusive to the right or if this is just where I've happened to see it. And maybe it's just human nature now, like post-pandemic, everyone's lost their mind. But I don't know. Let's see if this is real or paranoia.
And of course, I I hadn't really spoken to Alum in a while. I had no reason to disbelieve Milo. He hadn't provided any proof for this, but he was Milo Yiannopoulos. He was the head of the conservative movement. Of course, what he's going to do and what, his word is God's will at this point if you're a young conservative watching politics, right? It's Milo. So I just say, of course, Milo. Like, of course I'll help you out. That's crazy. I have no idea why Alum would do that, but let me see if I can find something. And that was that. I didn't hear from Milo for ages afterwards. And at the time, I didn't know what came of all that. I remember so clearly that one call from Milo saying, I need blackmail right now, Lauren. This guy is a far left spy. I need help. And I need you to show your allegiance basically to me and the conservative movement. Now, I'm going to have to bring you forward a little bit from here, because it wasn't until years later that I discovered everything Milo said on that call to me about Alan Bokhari was completely false. Completely false. Just made up out of thin air.
Paranoia.
Why, you may ask? Well, and some of this is publicly available information now due to lawsuits, but Alan Bokhari had written just about everything that made Milo famous. He wrote his book Dangerous, the most popular one, which he was owed a whole lot of money for in royalties. He wrote his speeches. He wrote his articles for Breitbart. He wrote his talking points for shows he went on. Alan Bokhari is a freaking genius. Actually, an extremely talented guy, but none of that was appreciated, apparently, because as soon as Alan wanted to get paid for all the work he did, Milo decided it would be easier to blackmail him. That's right. Milo did not want to pay Alan royalties for the book he wrote, and he figured it would be easier to call up people like me, call up friends and coworkers, and ask them all for any blackmail he could get on Alan Bokhari, so he could go to him and say, listen, I'm not going to pay you royalties, and you're not going to say a word about it or go to court, or I'm going to destroy your life with blackmail.
Not paranoia, just actual villainy.
What kind of a way is that to operate?
It doesn't surprise me at all. It doesn't surprise me at all, not one little bit, because when you lift up these influencers that are literally only interested in their brand and their image and their status, they will do this shit constantly. This is not surprising to me at all. I mean, it's not even disappointing. I wouldn't even say it's disappointing. Like, obviously that it was always obvious to me Milo wasn't actually doing these things and that he had people helping him. But the fact that he wanted to blackmail them, holy shit. But again, not surprising. Not surprising at all. I actually do wonder how many of the conservative influencers who make millions and millions of dollars selling books write those books at all. I think some of them do. I think some of them legitimately do write the books. I think that most of them are hiring out the writing of those books and claiming that they're theirs.
I still it's crazy, because looking at this, it's like, what the fuck? Who does that to people? And somehow this is still more sane than half the shit we're going to get to in this video.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
But I had this moment in my life when I started to see this stuff happen over and over again around me, of thinking, is this normal? Is this how normal people behave? Is this just what adults do? Is this what happens with regular celebrities in law offices? And like, what world have I entered that people behave in this manner towards one another?
In the real world, people do not operate. Well, some people operate this way. But in the real world, when you have like a real job in like a normal environment, most people do not operate this way. Maybe sometimes at the very top, you get some sketchy shit going on, but most people do not operate this way. And this, I think, was one of the things that really has made it very difficult for me to operate in this space, because I come from the normal world. I literally am a corporate trainer. I came from a normal world where I was teaching people how to communicate effectively with each other in a normal way. And then I get thrown into this world where it's just backstabbing and status whores and all of this stuff. And the politics sphere is not normal. People do not behave in the same way in this sphere as they do in the real world. It's all about image, darling, and brand, and viewership and subscribers and likes and money, 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 money. it's not, but people do not treat each other the way they do in the normal world. And I think that this is something that like average people don't understand, where they're kind of like on the outside looking in and they haven't had direct exposure to a lot of stuff that goes on in this space. And so they're applying the rules of the normal world to this space. And it is not a comparable thing. It is apples and oranges. And it is not just Milo Yiannopoulos. Everything that she has said so far about these influencers, I have seen in people that are currently very like high status influential people on the right. Every single thing. So maybe, I don't know if this is true of the left too, that it is quite possible that this would also be true of people on the left, but I have absolutely seen everything that she said in other influencers on the right now.
And it somehow all gets worse. It somehow all gets worse because truly this sort of behavior, I hate to say it because I put so much of my life and time and belief and my heart into conservative politics, but so much of this was the norm. Just the norm.
Yes.
The norm, day to day, what people just fucking did to each other all the time in this sphere.
Yes.
And if you weren't the one that was blackmailing other people, if you weren't the one that was ruining other people's lives to save your own ass, then you were the one getting your life ruined.
Yes. Yes.
For the most part. It was one or the other. And, you know...
Yes. She is 100% correct. She is what you either engage in this or you are the person who gets your life ruined. You either engage in this or you are the person who gets your reputation ruined. You either act like them and throw all your principles out the window or you are the one who gets your life ruined. And it is not just a few people. It's not just a few. It's not just onesies and twosies. It is almost every major influencer in the space, with few exceptions.
Just while I'm on the topic of sociopathic behavior in politics and support staff getting their lives ruined to save face for, you know, the big famous people at the front that'll razzle and dazzle the audience, let's talk about the white privilege grant. Some of you may remember this. 2017, man, the years have all meshed together, but Milo Yiannopoulos started a grant called the White Privilege Grant to help poor young men, white men. Obviously, there are a million grants for Black men, there are a million grants for women, Latina, mothers, whatever it be, but there are a whole heck of a lot of poor, rural, white people in America that have no grants for them. So it was a really cool opportunity for conservatives to give and help some people that have kind of been left behind and forgotten in society, right? And don't have anything for them. So a lot of people gave money. It was over $100,000 people gave to Milo Yiannopoulos to create this white privilege grant, he called it in a cheeky way. Months and months and months went by after he collected these donations, though, and no one seemed to know what was happening with them. No one seemed to know how the grant was being given, how to apply for it, what was going on. And Milo, thankfully, had hired a very organized woman named Margaret McLennan, who was big in the Gamergate days, to run this white privilege grant. She sent emails. She, you know, made sure all the money was supposed to go where it was supposed to, set the website up, all these different things. And when questions started being asked about where all the money had gone, Milo Yiannopoulos told us all that out of nowhere, Margaret McLennan had just lost her mind and ruined the privilege grant, made it all fall apart, started to spread rumors about Milo and tried to ruin his life. I guess much like Alum, she was just another woman that had suddenly turned to the far left and become a spy for them and was trying to ruin Milo. And we believed it. I don't know why. I don't know why. I still believed things Milo told me at that point.
Because you wanted to see the best. Because I think, and you know, and I agree with this. I've absolutely had situations like this happen where I'm like, I have been snowed by the same people over and over and over and over and over again. And I still wanted to believe them. And I think that you wanted to believe them because you genuinely did care. I'm talking like she can hear me right now. Like Lauren genuinely did care. And because she genuinely cared, she really wanted to try to see the best in other people, even if she had seen like this crazy tendency come out before. So you believe them because you know that you're coming. It's projection. It's a good form of projection. You know you're coming from a good place, and so you're projecting your positive intentions onto other people, but those other people don't have positive intentions.
It's some sort of Stockholm syndrome of him being like the head of the conservative movement, the biggest figure in there, and everything he said was just like God's word, right? But I remember even talking to people and being like, oh yeah, that Margaret McLennan chick, she's a bit crazy, isn't she? She went crazy on Milo. Milo warned me about her. And even without any evidence or facts, you just believed what Milo told you. And once again, it wasn't until months and months later that I discovered Margaret had tried to tell her side of the story, but she just didn't have the platform for it. She had tried to tweet out the evidence. She had tried to explain what happened to the privilege grant, but most people didn't see it because she wasn't the one with the Breitbart byline.
Yeah.
She wasn't the one with millions of viewers. She was just the support staff that got thrown under the bus. Margaret didn't steal any of the money. In fact, she published.
And even if they had seen it, they wouldn't have believed her. Even if they had seen it, they wouldn't have believed her. I'm going to say right now, 10 months ago, I wrote a series of articles on the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, FAIR. I wrote a series of articles on its CEO, Brian Bartning, calling him out for being exactly the person that I said he was. I had whistleblowers contacting me left and right from inside of FAIR. I have so much dirt on FAIR that has never been released because people decided that they were too scared of buy-in to actually say what was going on at FAIR. 10 months ago, I wrote this. 10 months ago, I released it. No one listened. And I was called crazy. And that's going to become relevant very, very soon. And I'm not going to say any more right now. But I want this out and recorded for posterity right now. But I do have some experience with exposing this bullshit stuff that goes on the right. And every single time I've tried to expose it, every single time I've said these are not good people, I'm told that I am the problem for talking about it. And how dare I even attack someone on the right? Why don't I spend time attacking the left? How dare I attack their heroes? How dare I attack their blue check influencers every single time? Even if I have the evidence, I'm like, this is like evidence, this is real. Your influencers are fucking you. They're bending you over and fucking you. The right doesn't want to hear it. And so I think even if people had seen Margaret's tweets, they wouldn't have believed her, and they would have somehow twisted it to make it her fault.
Published actual receipts, actual emails showing all of the money got transferred into Milo Yiannopoulos' bank account.
And now I'm proud to be one of the loudest voices criticizing the grant after I found what I believe to be internal mishandling. My name was removed from marketing materials, and Milo later attempted to shift blame for mismanagement of the grant onto me. My access as director was restricted to answering emails forwarded from the grant site, where I directed prospective applicants to wait, and I directed donors to wire money to a personal bank account owned by Yiannopoulos. The paperwork to sign ourselves as a charity was kicked down the road, and the grant was only addressed in public after major fundraising drives, when I spoke up to left-wing outlets in an effort to make sure the raised money would end up in the bank accounts of college students.
He took all of it. He stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from working class Americans to give to poor white young men who needed the help. And he just took it and then blamed his support staff, Margaret, ruining her life and her reputation so he could keep the money. And everyone just let that slide. Everyone just let it slide.
Of course they did.
I'm sorry.
Of course they did, because he was the hero.
Looking back on it. Yeah, I didn't find out. Like, I just believed Milo. I believed Milo at the time about Alum. I believed Milo at the time about Margaret. And this is a bit of a premonition for the future of this video. But whenever I look forward and I feel bad for myself, when a bunch of people believed stories about me that ended up or are false, I feel less bad for myself because I realized I played into this culture of, just believing what the popular figures in the right wing said about people. Oh, you're they're an Antifa spy, write them off. I just believe it.
Yep.
And then it happened to me, and a bunch of people just believed it and didn't look into it further. And I was so shocked and offended and surprised.
I had Cassandra Fairbanks plan a hit piece on me in I forget the name of the publication. It's like a conservative publication, basically showing in Instagram after I when I was exposing the white identitarian bullshit with the white identitarians trying to attach themselves to the anti-CRT movement in order to recruit from that movement into like their little white well-being bullshit movement. Like when I started talking about that, Cassandra Fairbanks and had someone go on my Instagram, found a picture of me with Pete Buttigieg when I was still a Democrat, and planted an article about me in a far right, like alt-right publication saying she was never a conservative. I never claimed to be a conservative. I never claimed to be a conservative. There are videos of walkaway speeches that I gave where I flat out say I'm not a conservative. Yet they, instead of going after the people who were actually doing the bad thing, they ran cover for them and tried to assassinate my character for pointing out this bad group of actors is doing a really bad thing and they are screwing up the anti-CRT fight. I had my character assassinated over this by like legitimate alt-right people. Have never really recovered from that, by the way. That was the worst. People think the worst cancellation was when the conservative Christians took a tweet out of context in which I was having a spiritual discussion about if Hitler went to hell. Like, they thought that was the worst cancellation. No, not even close to the white identitarian conservative backlash cancellation when I started exposing what the white identitarians were doing in the anti-CRT movement to try to use it to recruit people to a white well-being movement. The cancellation that I experienced from the right when I exposed that was by far the worst thing that's ever happened to me. By far the worst character assassination that has ever happened to me. Still have nightmares about it today. Still have nightmares about that today. And what I was put through in that.
It's like, well, no, I did the same thing. People, we all think we're the party of facts and logic. We all think we're the, we're the right wing. We care about the receipts. We care about the reality. But then we have a lot of cult-like dynamic, or still have a lot of cult-like dynamics of our own.
Yes.
Where people can get excommunicated, where we don't really look into things that deeply if the saints of our movement say it.
Yes.
And yeah, for how proud I was for a lot of my life of I really care about the reality, there were a lot of points where I missed it myself. No one likes to talk about this stuff.
I really deeply appreciate how self-reflective she's being because everything she just said is 100% true. Where the right paints themselves as the side of logic and reason, and they are the ones that look at the information, and no, they don't. They don't. Not when it involves, like she said, the patron saints of their movement. They absolutely do not look at the information when it involves the patron saints of their movement. They will defend those patron saints against anyone who says anything negative towards them. And it drives people away. But I really appreciate how self-reflective she's being on this because most people on the right would not be this self-reflective.
Stuff because it's messy, right? It doesn't make anyone look good. It doesn't make me look good because it makes me look like I'm going to air everyone's dirty laundry. It doesn't make everyone in the movement or conservatism look good because they look like a mess. They look like it's full of people that are stealing money and lying about each other. And I could very easily carry on just making videos. I climb that social ladder, not talk about any of this, and my life would be a lot simpler. But I genuinely can't. I can't. It doesn't feel right. I feel like it's dishonest. I feel whenever I talk about the right wing and when people wonder why I have so much distrust or skepticism or why I don't like the right or isolate myself a bit more, no one really understands why. And I haven't explained any of it because it's just so much. It's so much. And it's easier not to talk about. But
I've made videos about several right-wing people who've done this bullshit to me. And I always get backlash every single time. And the reason that I did it is I was like, maybe like people should want to know this. People should want to know that Cassandra Fairbanks is a legitimate lunatic. People should want to know this information. Why don't you want to know this? Like, why are you lifting these people up? Why are you supporting these people? But they don't want to know. they don't want to know it all. And it's like, you really do have a choice. Like I've said it a million times. I am hyper aware that if I really wanted to grift on all of this, I could make rah Trump videos or rah DeSantis videos, or I could say I know how to say exactly what I would be required to say to get that bolt-ton pile of cash. My pile of cash wouldn't be as big as someone else's because I'm not thin and young and blonde, but like I know exactly what I would need to say in order to get a large pile of cash. I also know exactly how I need to present. Like if I really wanted that pile of cash, I go to the gym, I would grow my hair out, I would not look at all like I look now. I would present the perfect little right-wing darling. I know exactly what I need to say and exactly what I need to do. It is made extremely clear what is required to be successful in this space and to be loved in this space. And it's really not that hard. But in order to do those things, you have to sell your soul. You have to sell out. I made the decision that telling the truth was more important than selling out, and it looks like Lauren has made that decision as well. And mad props to her, man. She has a lot to lose. Mad props to her.
But yeah, we're about to get into some heavy stuff here. We're about to get into some much heavier stuff. Whew. So 2016, 2017, back to the main storyline. Milo's in hot water over his privilege grant, and I am in some hot water of my own. I just don't know it yet. I've moved to Toronto, working for Rebel, killing it. All my videos are doing fantastic. I'm getting these interviews with Jordan Peterson, first one on SJWs, all his protests, they're going viral. At this point, I'm on top of the world. I don't think anything's going to change. It's just upward trajectory with Rebel from here. And then I'm sitting at my desk in the office, and I get an email. It's from Ezra, and it says the office are going on an Israel trip. We're going to have some fun, try some couscous, make some videos. It'll be great. Okay, so anyways, a few months go by. We're getting closer to the actual trip, and we start getting emails asking us to do public crowdfunding for the trip and to crowdfund it as a fact-finding investigative journalism mission. No worries. The only problem I had was that when I was speaking to people in the office about the trip and getting itineraries for it, it became pretty obvious that this was a guided tour, not a fact-finding mission. We had, people we were slated to speak to every day. We had a tour guide that was, aligned with an organization that was assisting to fund the trip. And I have no problem whatsoever with guided tours of Israel, people who do these paid for trips to kind of get people to understand the politics and the ideas there. That's not my issue at all. It was that it wasn't being honest with the audience. What we were asked to pitch the audience was that we were going on this like hardcore fact-finding mission, when really it was just like a tour guide trip that was already being assisted in funding. So I sent an email to the higher ups telling them, listen, like, seems like a great trip, seems like a lot of fun. My particular expertise is not in Middle Eastern issues whatsoever. I don't have a massive opinion on this stuff. And I'm just not comfortable telling the audience that we're going on a fact-finding mission that's actually a tour, right? So can I fundraise in some other way? Can I maybe just ask people in general for donations to Rebel? Say we need help, say we need, obviously every company needs money to function and run. So can I just portray this in a different way that I feel is more honest to the audience? And maybe I'll even take a step back from the Israel trip. I don't have to go. I just am a big fan of the structure. I didn't think I had done anything wrong. I thought
you didn't do anything wrong.
Reasonable, well-measured approach.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Uncomfortable with. But for some reason, I still had this gut feeling that there was something bad happen. Went home, slept the next day, setting up in the office, getting right my video, and I get called into the general manager's office. I hadn't done anything wrong. No. I still hold that I had not done wrong, so I didn't think I had to be worried. But when they brought me in, I was told that I was being let go. I was being fired from the company.
Wow.
Yeah. I lost my job in conservative media, and I will never forget walking out of that office with my little box of things and sitting on the curb outside, thinking to myself, you know what? I did the right thing. I did the right thing. I was honest about how I felt about this. I was honest that it made me feel uncomfortable. And if I got fired for being honest, then so be it. That's why I'm making this video right now, because I'm really bad at being dishonest. But you know, I also had this feeling of impending doom that just sunk in my stomach, realizing, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay my next bill? I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Toronto, sleeping on a mattress that I can't even afford a bed frame for. Just having this realization that doing the right thing doesn't pay the bills, it's depressing, but true, and it never changes. This video is probably going to severely hurt my career. Severely. There'll probably be a bunch of people that cut me off, maybe people that pursue me legally. It's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. But I have sat for so long wanting to make this video, and it bothers me all the time, every day when I don't. So I just have to. Whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to be able to get into chapter 4 in this episode because, like I said, I have a call in 15 minutes. So I need to go get ready for that. But I really feel for Lauren. Like, okay, so we basically watched the first 3. Let me bring the screen up again. We basically watched the first 3 chapters. We watched Rebel, Killer Queen, and Smooth Criminal. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 left to go. So maybe it's gonna be a 4-part series of reaction videos. But I really, really, really feel for Lauren. I know what it's like to get fired from a job for doing the right thing. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to get fired from a job when you don't really have, for doing the right thing, when you don't really have anything in your bank account. And to go from being kind of like in this space where like everyone probably wanted a piece of her to losing your job over sending a perfectly fine email. Then again, that email would have been perfectly fine in any organization. She wasn't refusing to do anything. She just said, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Can I do this instead? That is a perfectly reasonable thing to say. And she paid for it. But I am blown away so far at this documentary at how similar the themes are to what I experienced on the right. I'm absolutely blown away. And it's something that like it really is hitting me on like a deeply personal level. And you know, like at PorkFest, I had a conversation with another woman who was in conservative media, and I'm not going to say her name, but because I don't want to throw her under the bus. I know that she's not ready to talk about some of this stuff publicly is the thing. And but she and I had a conversation over beers one night in the Mises Caucus tent for like, probably a couple hours. We were talking about this and just comparing and contrasting our experiences in right-wing media and how we feel used by the right and how we were thrown under the bus by the right, and just like how we were treated. And everything that I've seen so far in Lauren's documentary is exactly the same thing. It's the same themes popping up over and over and over again. The influencers might be different, the names change, but the themes are the same. And so I guess, again, I'm really glad that Lauren did this. Kudos to her. Really, really, really. But that's going to conclude part 1 of my reaction to Lauren Southern's documentary, The Whole Truth. I will be doing, I guess, probably 3 other parts. Let's do them in series of 3 chapters. It's already 2 hours long, so it's a long reaction. But we'll do a little, we'll do a limited series of reaction video to this. But I definitely encourage everyone to watch it, and leave your comments below and let me know what you think. And I guess that's all I have right now. I will see you guys in part 2.